All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out today. We called this press conference for a variety of reasons. The first that I want to address is the irresponsible reporting that was done on this story last week. I saw a lot of things on Facebook, I saw a lot of things going out, and it really is frustrating because when you put inaccurate information out there like that, it really causes an issue, and we wanted to address that. So the first thing that I want to say is that the legislation that has been put out by our county council, which is in the brief book right now, and the story that was covered was that this emergency legislation was done to stop some sort of plan that the executive was doing. That is not the case at all. As a matter of fact, the expedited legislation is something that we wanted to happen. So I just wanted to reiterate that, and so I'm hoping after the press conference today, everybody really understands exactly what is going on at our landfill. So, I need to take you back in time. I was elected into office on December 6, 2022. And every elected official that goes into office has to inherit a plan for lots of different things. One of the plans that I inherited was our landfill operations. One of the issues that we came across was the lifespan of the landfill. We actually had brought back Wayne Strasberg, who was the former director of administration, brought him back on contract to talk about what that lifespan of our landfill is going to look like. Our landfill, if you don't know, if you think about an aerial shot of the landfill, is divided up into sections, what we call cells. When I came into office, we were in the middle of building cell 10. We then were going to be building cell 8, and then we were going to be moving on to cell 7. And that would complete the entire footprint of what we have left of our current landfill. When we came into office, we were told that our landfill had 20 years left. Come to find out, it's not 20 years. It may be 7, it may be less than that. And I won't get into what the reasons were for that, but that's what we were told coming in. We also found out that we were a year behind design in cell 10, which was causing a lot of issues. Another reason that we brought Wayne Strasberg back. So weekly, we were meeting with our solid waste team and the construction company trying to figure out what we can do to get this back on path, or back on track. We were able to do so. Cell 10 was open, and we're moving forward. We started the construction of cell 8. When we started the construction of cell 8, what we discovered was that there was trash as we started to dig. So back in the day, people did not follow regulations. Trenches were dug in that same area. Trash was put there, and we put the landfill on top of that. When we discovered that there was trash in cell 8, where do you think that trash had to go? Cell 10. So we're moving from one area to another, filling cell 10 a little bit quicker than what we thought. We've also seen an increase of trash influx coming into our landfill at an increased rate of 26%. So we have to move quickly. So we're in cell 8 at this point in time, moving forward with the design of cell 7. Now, that sort of brings us up to our current situation that we're in right now. And for that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Adam Corey so he can sort of take you through exactly what we're going through currently.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, County Executive. Adam Corey, I'm the acting landfill superintendent. I came on board here at the county at the Department of Public Works in October of last year. Not really planning to get into the landfill, but I think it was necessary to get where we are today. We've been making outreach to our hauler community since last year with several public workshops, also engaging the council as it pertains to our tipping fee, which I've stated publicly before had remained too low for too long, which I'll get into a little bit later as far as the materials that we have accepted at the Wicomico landfill that we should not have accepted, nor should we be in the future. With cell 8 and 10, our airspace, you always want to be doing an airspace calculation based on a flyover survey. Prior to the flyover survey that I had requested in March of 2025, we looked at the previous data that was provided to us over previous geotechnical firm analysis and flyover survey and trend analysis that was performed by the previous management that said we could anywhere from 3.5 to 7 years. That's way too long of a span when you really want to get a lot more accurate than that. So with the most recent flyover data that we did and our trend analysis with that increase of significant tonnage up to 26% and 165,000 tons coming into our landfill in 2024, we knew we had a problem. What we tried to do from there is look at engaging the hauler community and the council, and we appreciate a lot of the council's comments about the idea of diverting waste away from our landfill and the concept of not allowing any material that's outside of Wicomico County to come to us. So I want to talk a little bit today about where we stand with the legislation that was announced to be heard tomorrow night, that was announced on Monday of last week, without any collaboration from the solid waste staff nor the Department of Public Works. We're very glad to hear that the council acknowledges the crisis that we're in. However, the legislation that was brought to bear and will be heard tomorrow night is flawed, I will say. The main thing is that the council introduces legislation that will codify the allowance of trash from outside of Wicomico County. That is in direct conflict and a violation of our state refuse disposal permit. Our state refuse disposal permit, all pertinent supplemental documentation, and including our 10-year solid waste management plan that was recently adopted by County Council resolution and approved by the state of Maryland in the spring of this year, late winter, spring of this year, says that our landfill only takes intra-jurisdictional waste. That means that our landfill serves the population of Wicomico County and no other. So haulers that are bringing material from outside of Wicomico County, whether that be Worcester, Sussex, or otherwise, are bringing it to us for a reason. I've made this comment before and I'll say it again. They're bringing it to us because we're the cheapest game around and we're the centrally located landfill of the Eastern Shore. So I want to draw your attention to some things on the board behind me, and this is just a real quick snippet in time. Literally, I think almost every photograph that is up on this board was taken on Friday afternoon at our last 2 or 3 vehicles that came across our scales. Now, every day at the Wicomico County landfill, we do vehicle inspection reports. Those are a federally required mandate that we are making sure that we see the vehicle, its manifest. If the driver does not have a manifest, we determine the route of the material because we do not want to inadvertently accept hazardous waste. That is illegal. We can't bring it into our facility. Well, it also gives us the ability to make a contact and touch with that driver to find out how we can make our operations better. They might say, hey, there was a pothole on your haul road, for example. Any little thing like that. However, it gets us the ability to find out where that material is coming from. I'm unfortunately not happy to report at all that every one of these photographs represent 2 loads, which were 2 of the last trucks that came into our landfill on Friday afternoon. The drivers, when asked for manifests, did not have one. Because they did not have a manifest, we asked what their routes were. Both drivers readily admitted, as they were dumping their loads, their entire load was from Worcester County. Every one of these addresses that are found that we went through with my crew are all Berlin, West Ocean City. There's even a pizza box in there from 117th Street. Folks, it's plain and simple. The legislation that the County Council is entertaining tomorrow night violates our state permit. We do not want to be in conflict with the Maryland Department of the Environment, especially when they are working with us very, very diligently right now to ensure that we get cell number 7 open, hopefully by no later than May of 2026, so that we do not have to go into a crisis situation where we are shutting down our landfill. Once we get cell 7 open, as soon as cell 7 opens, we start groundbreaking across the road for our horizontal expansion, which we've already been in the process for years, this county has, of the hydrogeologic evaluation on that side of the road in preparation and preliminary design to make sure we never run into this problem again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate everything you're saying, Adam. So the other thing that we wanted to touch on with the legislation is there's a lot of operational decisions that are being made within that legislation, which also violates our charter. So the executive branch, whether you like the executive branch or not, we are here to stay, and we handle the operational part of this county. The appropriations part comes from the legislative body. And what very much was frustrating is that instead of having that conversation with the council attorney coming over to our solid waste division, talking to the Maryland Department of Environment, we now are working on two things at the same time. So when we knew this crisis was happening, we've been working on this for the last, 2 or 3 months. Meeting with the county attorney, meeting with Maryland Department of Environment, meeting with the solid waste staff, figuring out the best course of action, being able to put these things into place. And so when you have the council not reach out to us and work on the same exact thing, you as taxpayers are paying both attorneys to do the same work, which was very frustrating. So the biggest thing that I want to reiterate here is we are not in this fighting where we don't agree with their legislation. The main crux of their legislation is diverting outside waste from coming into our county. We all agree on that. They actually expedited that process by turning it into emergency legislation. We weren't even proposing it as emergency legislation. But I do want to reiterate that when we don't communicate and collaborate, this is what happens. You get reactive legislation that has to be amended because it's in violation of our state law now, our state permit, which is going to cause an issue. And I just want to reiterate that state permit is in the name of the Wicomico County Executive. The Wicomico County Executive, that's whose name is on that permit. So I need to reiterate that as well. So we need to figure out a course of action moving forward where we have the same goal. We need to divert this trash out of the landfill. And that's just step one. That's just step one. So to see things on Facebook like, how ridiculous is it that the Wicomico County Executive wants to protect 103,000 people, that she wants to divert trash out of our landfill and come up with some crazy plan. I am doing it to save the residents of this county. So they are not paying astronomical costs to ship trash out of here until we get Cell 7 open. So for the first time, well, I won't say the first time, but in a long time, we actually all agree. We have to get out of county trash out of this landfill. And it's very frustrating when you have, an organization come out and say, well, there's this fighting going on, or you have a Facebook group that puts out false information, or you have people with fake profiles on Nextdoor apps putting out this false information to the county residents. The only thing that we are trying to do is save our county residents and preserve the landfill that we have. We only have one. We don't want another one in the county, right? So we need to preserve this one. And this is just the first step, is by diverting that trash. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, Madam Executive, one more thing I did want to add, folks, when it comes to our landfill serving the population of Wicomico County. When you look at that top center photograph, that is one of those loads I was speaking about earlier that was dropped there on Friday. This is my take-home message to every resident of Wicomico County, because last time I checked, every resident of Wicomico County, whether you're 6-month-old or 100-year-old, you produce trash of some sort, and it's got to go somewhere. The space that truckload took up is space that will never be used by a resident of Wicomico County who is the rightful owner of that space. We have to stop taking trash from other counties. We need legislation that codifies a full prohibition with enforcement tactics, and that's something we were already working on before this legislation was introduced. And I really look forward to a communication and collaboration with the council so we can make this right for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. And the last thing I'm going to say is I'm hoping that the council will withdraw the legislation being introduced tomorrow night. That way we have a full scope of what is going on. We would love to share the information that we've gathered from Maryland State Department of Environment, working hand in hand with our county attorney, making sure that we are following every state guideline that we are supposed to. We all want the same thing, but we can't rush to get it there, because when we rush, we end up with flaws in legislation. And we need to make sure that we get this right. And we're not talking delaying it very long. We actually had planned to present this to you that we could have a work session in the middle of July. So that is all I have. Is there anything else you'd like to close with, sir?
No, ma'am.
All right. We would like to open it up for questions if there are any news outlets that have a question. Mr. Goldberg.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mike Goldberg, U.S. Corporate Agenda TV. You've been in office for about 2.5 years at this point. And to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time that we've heard of any kind of a landfill plan that's been released to the public. And I'm also unaware of any open work sessions that you may have initiated or requested with the county council. Why haven't we heard anything from your office until last week?
Well, I think I would say until there's a crisis, there's really not a need. And actually, the plan, the comprehensive plan, was put in front of them in January. So they know, they know our path forward. They know the plan that we're moving forward on this. So I've been in office, as I said, 2.5 years. For the first 6 months, I also was told that there was 20 years left of our landfill. So when you think 2 decades, you're thinking, okay, well, we have a little bit of time. As we changed employees, as we started bringing in people that had a little bit more knowledge of what was going on, we realized that that was not necessarily accurate. So having Adam as our acting superintendent over at our landfill, we've been gathering that data. It just takes time. We're talking 2.5 years. I think somebody said she's known about this for 10 years. I can guarantee you 10 years ago, I was not even concerned about our landfill because I was teaching school. So I've been in this role 2.5 years, and realizing the crisis that we're at now is just something that just recently came up. We had in 2023 is when we really started moving forward and going out there weekly and meeting, which was only 3 months into my administration. So we've been working on this since I've been in office.
But nobody has heard about this after 2.5 years until now. And as of 2018, it's my understanding that the estimates were that there was 30-some years, that the landfill would be adequate through 2040. What's changed since 2018? Have there been new geotechnical studies undertaken? And if so, who performed those studies? And when were they provided to you?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Goldberg. Unfortunately, some of the previous hydrogeo work that was done, including by some contractors that were working on the construction of other cells, the data was not necessarily accurate. And I don't think necessarily that the data that was provided from the internal management at the solid waste division before, when that data was being shared out to those groups, I don't think it was accurate then either. There wasn't a really good handle from the standpoint of doing a regular recurring survey, right? It's one thing to just look at the numbers on paper, but you have to actually get up there and physically do a flyover. When I got here, said that's one of the first things we need to do, and that's something we should be doing every 6 months, not just when you need to check your math after a couple of years. It needs to be done more often. I don't know I really can't tell you where the guess estimates were that somebody said we had 20 plus years left.
Based on any geotechnical investigations?
There was obviously geotechnical data available to be reviewed. There was obviously
Was there a study that
I do not believe there was, other than the previous.
now contracted for a study with a qualified?
Oh, without a doubt.
engineer?
Yes, sir. We're working on that
And you
constantly.
have results of that at this point?
Well, we have the March 2025 flyover is where the data come in that really put us into sharp focus that we're at a problem.
So the study's been limited to flyover data?
Well, flyover and trend analysis, that's what you want. You want your cubic yardage, your density calculations, and you want your actual available airspace based on your final build-out plan. And then we have to start, at this point, finding out how to really, pardon the pun, but how to skin a cat a little different way. Are we going to have areas on the property that are older that we can utilize for placement of material in preparation for Cell 7? And that's the things we're doing right now. Literally, as we speak, we're building a new haul road on the rear. That way we can avoid the elevation change. I have areas on the front and rear of the landfill that still have permitted space that we're going to bring material to, all in an effort to try to prevent and extend our time until Cell 7 is open.
And also, under your plan, Madam Executive, that we saw for the first time last week, the areas outside of the municipalities under your phased program as of July 1st, 2026 may not be able to have any commercial trash hauling service. And I was wondering, how does this serve the needs of county residents who do not reside within municipalities?
Well, that's a really good question. So right now, this is all a proposed plan. Excuse me, a proposed plan. So we are not saying we're implementing every single one of these steps, but these are steps that are put into place just in case. My goal right now is to make sure that we are on track for Cell 7. What happened with Cell 10 prior to my administration being a year behind cannot happen. It cannot happen. So that is my goal right now. We are going to be cutting it close to where we have to close up Cell 8 and then be ready for Cell 7. We are talking, gosh, we're hoping just like it's going to be right, like one right after the other. So all I can say is that I feel very confident I have the right people in place at this point in time to make this happen. And like I said, whether people like the plan, if we don't do these necessary steps, the entire landfill is going to close, whether they're county residents or city residents. And when that space is filled, if Cell 7 is not done, the landfill closes. And I'm saying it on record, the landfill will close until Cell 7 is open. So we are at a very extreme thing right now. I don't even know how else to really say it. Is there anything else you want to add on that? Because you were very good about coming up with this plan, so I don't want to take anything away from you guys.
One of the biggest things is, again, the unintended tonnage, which takes up airspace, is really, that's the main crux of the decision here. We've got to get that on the books sooner than later. And again, it's unfortunate the legislation was developed the way it was, but if we can work together tomorrow night, if we can work together next week, council and the solid waste division, to talk about how to make it so we do strictly prohibit the outside waste. I'm not saying that's a silver bullet. That's a huge part of this discussion. Limiting and diverting wastes to try to avoid shutdown is something we do.
Number one.
No landfill wants to ever do, but we're in this crisis, and there's only going to be one way out of it. You got to stop the outside.
Divert the waste, and it's residents who do not live in the cities are the ones who are going to take the hit, while if you live in Salisbury, you're still going to be able to avail yourself of commercial hauling.
So
why are people in the county being singled out on this?
Well, I don't necessarily think the plan is intended in any way, shape, or form to single anybody out. And also, in a phased approach, if we go with a phased approach, the way it's currently drafted as a proposal, you still are going to get that trash in. It's just going to be under a different day. Members of this council themselves have asked that we're going to have a serious conversation with our haulers about diverting waste, about finding a different day of the week to haul. You know what I mean? The waste that's coming to us from Wicomico County, that should already be in the mix. We shouldn't be worried about that. What we are worried about is that many of these haulers, sir, are going outside of our jurisdiction, making a big loop into Sussex or Worcester County or somewhere else maybe, and ending their day at our facility. We should not be taking that trash. We should not account for that trash in our 10-year management plan. And when you talk about the airspace we have left, it's gobbling it up.
Why has there been the 26%, I believe, increase in the volume of trash? Our population has not grown to that extent. Have prior estimates been off base, or is something happened that we're just not aware of?
So,
Yeah.
So as far as that, the arithmetic there is going to take more time than just the time we've looked at it here just recently. You got to establish the time series data trends on why. One of the biggest issues we have is the increase in tonnage. We had our neighboring counties rising in their tipping fees, while our state at $67 for an ever and ever amen. So it makes sense if we're not going to say, hey, hauler A, you cannot bring trash in here from Worcester County. As long as we're not standing at the gate telling him that, if I'm a business owner, I'm going to maximize my profit. I'm going to say, I'm bringing it to you, Wicomico, because you're not telling me I can't. All right? And you're cheaper to do it.
It's my understanding that under the council's plan, in the legislation that will be discussed tomorrow night, that they intend to charge a 20% surcharge on the amount of
Right.
county trash.
So here's the flaw with that.
Be a sufficient disincentive for commercial haulers to bring in out-of-county trash to them.
We talked about the idea of a higher tipping fee being a diversionary mechanism to prevent undue and unnecessary burden of waste from outside of our county. But I'm going to repeat it one more time. like I said earlier, knowingly codifying the acceptance of exterior jurisdictional waste is a violation of this permit. So regardless if you're going to charge $100 a ton for Worcester County waste or $1,000 a ton for Worcester County waste, violates this permit. We've got no business doing it. The legislation should not be written that way.
Yeah.
It's not a violation if it's coming in now.
It is a violation now, which is why we're trying to divert it and trying to figure that out. That is why we're working on putting it in code to be able and having set guidelines as to what is going to happen if you do this. Other counties have it. I mean, they do have it. And you will see a lot of people say, I don't take this to Worcester because Worcester doesn't allow it. So that is where we need to do better, and we need to clean this up. It's always been in our permit. Always has been in our permit that we cannot take out of county trash. But what we're trying to do, and this is where us and the council do agree, we have to have it in our code saying that we are not going to take out of county trash. I cannot and will not violate our state permit. We cannot give a path forward, 20%, whatever, and you're actually relying on somebody to be honest. Oh yeah, I have Worcester County trash, so sure, I'll pay an extra 20%. But I cannot sign off on legislation. I cannot approve legislation that violates that. There can be no path forward for any hauler. I don't care who it is, a friend of a friend or a friend of whoever. I don't care who it is. They will not have a path forward in Wicomico County to be able to bring out of county trash, period.
We're just now dealing with this 2.5 years into your term.
Mike, I've been in office 2.5 years. This has been a 20-year problem of every other executive. So we are trying to fix that. It's very difficult to right the ship. Okay, it takes a little bit. You know what I mean? I can't just make a quick turn and be able to fix it. But we are also doing our due diligence working with MDE. This is not something that is going to fix itself overnight. So this is not just something that we have been working on just in the past couple weeks. This is something that since Adam has been brought on, we have been working on it since October. But trying to figure out the best path forward. The first path that we tried to do was raise the tipping fees. We thought maybe that would help divert it. For the past 2 years, we've tried to do that, and we already know what had happened there. So we're not doing it to be mean, to cost residents more money. We are doing it to try to save 104,000 people. Because if we have to close that landfill because of people like this who are bringing in garbage from other parts of the county or other counties that shouldn't be bringing it in, it affects 104,000 people. And 104,000 people's rates will be increased. Because not only will your rates be increased when you're bringing the trash in on your stickers, but all of your bills will go up because it's going to cost us anywhere between $110 to $130 a ton to ship it out of here. And we're trying to avoid that at all costs. I promise you, we are not trying to do anything other than save our landfill, save our residents, and work with this county council. But when you have the relationship that you do where they are, going out on their own, I can't even understand how you write legislation and you don't talk to a solid waste division. You write legislation and you're not talking to the Maryland State Department of the Environment. You write legislation and you're not even looking at what our permit states. There's flaws in the legislation. However, the idea of diverting trash, we both agree on, and that's what we're going to focus on.
But why has your office, respectfully, not reached out to the council over the last 2.5 years? Of course,
Mike, you're defending the council, and this is not, I know, but this is not a Julie Giordano, Mike Goldberg show. Is there anybody else that has any questions? Mr. Campbell.
The permit that Mr. Adam has, you said that it's in the county executive's name.
Yes, sir.
If they pass the legislation tomorrow, they're passing legislation that could potentially affect you because your name is on that
Correct.
permit. What is the ramifications from the state of Maryland if that does happen?
That actually might more so be yours.
So coming from the Maryland Department of the Environment before coming here to the county, I can tell you that the state, again, let me just make this comment. Trash, sewage, all those things that we deal with environmentally, they're apolitical. It's black and white in Comar. What you end up with is a situation where the state now has to get in between, a you-know-what match, if you will. And the state doesn't like to be in that position. Typically what they want to do is say, you can be in accord with your permit or we're going to send you an Instagram, and then you're going to make a donation to the state of Maryland. If you catch my drift with making a donation to the state. We don't want to get in that situation either because, again, I want to be on the good side of our regulatory partners. We've got to sell, we've got to open. The worst thing I could do is have a bad relationship with the people that are going to be issuing me that permit. I say me, they're going to issue the landfill the permit. But if this legislation were to go through as is, and it literally violates this disposal permit, and again, I'm looking at it right here, issued to the Wicomico County Executive, that operational charge rests in this elected official's hands. You really don't want to go down that road. It's not a good path.
Conversations with hauling companies last week, a concern that was brought up to my attention is if the phased-in method goes forward and there are certain days that we can't pick up trash, even if that's in Wicomico County, that could leave hospitals, restaurants, certain homes with their trash piling up. It could cause backups at the landfill itself when we are allowed to deliver that trash. You guys mentioned conversations going forward with those hauling companies. Mm-hmm. Will those conversations include possible solutions to that, or do you guys have a plan right now to alleviate those concerns?
It's a great question. You don't mind if I take that one?
Go ahead.
Okay. So, again, we want the good feedback from our hauler community. I was speaking to a couple of gentlemen that are in the room today that are roll-off haulers. Roll-off haulers are different. The way they do business is different. They're not running a unit that's going to pick up 15 to 18 tons of material on one of these big exterior routes. Roll-offs that are serving like the hospital, for example, or Acme or whatever, I agree, can't be piling up. Those roll-offs are not, it's not in their business model to go way outside of our county's jurisdiction and pick up material. They want to have a bin that's here in Salisbury and get that joker over to the landfill as quickly as possible so they can go run another one. So we have talked about it, and I've been in communication with the county attorney to think about a way that we could do a carve-out for roll-off containers. Now, when you talk about roadside residential pickup, it becomes a little trickier, right? Again, at the end of the day, we don't want to put anything into work here that is going to hurt our citizens. I can tell you, though, again, like Madam Executive has stated, if we don't do something, we're going to get into the point where every citizen is going to be hurt. So let's get together. Let's work on a full, strict prohibition with enforcement actions to stop trash from outside of this county. That makes a huge difference right there.
Yeah, and just going back to what you said, Mr. Goldberg, so we have been in contact with the council. So the last time I checked, over the last year, we've had several public works meetings where they have given updates of what's going on with public works. The comprehensive plan was put in their hands. It's accessible online. You can go see it. So anytime that they, had questions about the landfill, they very easily could have reached out at that point in time. We were in constant conversation this time last year because we had attempted to raise fees at that point to help with the diversion. This has been an ongoing conversation. To say that this is the first time that anybody's seeing anything is just not true. It's just not true. So it might not be to your liking, but we have reached out, and these guys are all available to them at any point in time. So to sit there and say that my office has been closed off and they don't know what's going on, I feel like that's completely false.
Have you actually requested a work session to deal with this specific issue?
This specific issue, we were at a point where we felt most comfortable after meeting with MDE, after meeting with our attorney, and this takes a little bit. This takes a little bit of time to put something together to really figure out the best course of action. So actually, the request was supposed to go in because we were going to be meeting in the middle of July for a work session. And after a haulers meeting that was held, because Adam meets with the haulers
we try
quarterly.
To do it every 6 months.
Oh, 6 months. Okay. So
but we've had workshops that have even been more frequent than that.
Right. So after a specific meeting, all of a sudden, this emergency legislation was drafted. So I think what's frustrating, again, is that the crux of it is great because all they're doing is expediting exactly what we want to happen. We want to divert the trash. There's just a couple of things that have to be tweaked in order for us to be in compliance. And what I'm asking is, it doesn't matter if you are putting together legislation that is specific to a specific area. I would hope it doesn't take me to say to the council, please reach out to the solid waste staff. Please reach out to the planning and zoning staff. We had the same issue with the kennel legislation. Again, reactive legislation where my planning and zoning department was completely in the dark and then had to scramble to try to get things done. I am asking at this point in time in front of everybody, if you are drafting legislation, please reach out to those departments to meet with them. It shouldn't have to come from me. If they're drafting the legislation, reach out to the planning and zoning department. Reach out to the public works department. I have never, at any point in time, ever said to the council, you are not allowed to speak to my department heads. That happened in the past. I've never done that. Reach out to them. They have no problem calling and telling them about people in campers and filling their, with nuisance complaints and everything else. So when it comes to something this important, I shouldn't have to tell 7 elected officials to reach out to the departments that this ultimately affects.
But as executive, the de facto leader of the county, isn't it appropriate for you to have reached out to the council to try to work with them to pass effective legislation that both the legislative and executive branches can, in fact, come to agreement on?
Absolutely, but I had no idea about this legislation. We were doing that exact thing. After the haulers meetings and we were putting together a work session legislation to say, hey, look, we understand we have this problem. But they jumped the gun. They just did it a little bit quicker. But I think the legislation, all in all, is fine. There's just some tweaks that have to be made to making sure that we're staying in compliance. That's it. I mean, that's the bottom line. My suggestion is, if there's legislation that they want to do, please reach out to the department heads and meet with them. That's not that hard. I'm not going to sit there and check in with 7 elected officials to say, hey, do you have anything? Let me know. No. Reach out to those departments. Hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. It's very simple. It works on both ends. So if you want to try to say that this is my fault or that I should have reached out, it's a two-way street. And in this type of situation, just as the dog kennel legislation, lots of problems could have been avoided if the exact people who are working on these on a daily basis. I know it's hard to believe, but we don't sit around waiting for council inquiry on things. We are actually working on a day-to-day basis. But if there are things that want to go forward, we would love to work together. That dog legislation should have never happened the way that it did. Just like this legislation shouldn't be happening the way that it is. It's not emergency legislation. That's number one. It's not emergency legislation. There is a path forward that we need to work together on. And I'm just asking, if we are going to try to move forward with certain things, we need to be able to reach out to those individuals who it affects or those departments. That way you're getting all of the information. Bob Benson is very knowledgeable. He's a very knowledgeable county attorney. However, he's not a landfill expert. I'm not a landfill expert. That's why I have Adam up here. So reach out to those individuals who know what they're doing, who are working with state entities all the time on this. That's what I'm asking. Anyway, did you want to add anything else? No. Were there any other questions? Kyle, go ahead, and then I'll. Hold on a second, Bob. Okay, Mr. Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah, just a general question. If
Sure.
a state permit forbids trash from out of the county, it sounds like the landfill people are still allowing it to come in. You mentioned Friday. Well, why isn't it being prohibited?
So
The county council doesn't have to do that.
no, you're right. However, again, like the executive just mentioned, Mr. Taylor, we were literally in the process of working on our own legislation code to submit for the council's consideration in the second meeting of July to explicitly prohibit it and have an enforcement tactic. Because right now, what I've got is, if a vendor dumps at our property and the materials from outside of Wicomico County, number one, they can say, I don't know how that got in there. I guess the pizza box from 117th Street, because I always want to bring that home. It's good pizza, I guess. But I got to be able to prove it, okay? In these couple of cases, these guys are self-admitting when we ask them on the Hill, it's from out of the county. Now, I can do one of two things at that point. I can say, that's fine, we're going to load your vehicle back up, and you can take it back to Worcester County. We've thought about it. And honestly, if there is inaction moving forward after today and tomorrow, this is something we're going to have to do. We are literally going to have to turn vendors around at the scales when we ask them, do you have waste from outside of our county?
That's what other towns
Well,
do.
but they have a
County does that.
but they have a code that specifically gives them enforcement action. Because we don't have that, if I say that, the next thing you know, somebody's hauling company ABC is going to be in here wringing their hands to the county council, as they've done before, that they're being told they can't dump, or they're being asked something extraordinary, like a vehicle inspection report, which we've done every day for decades, to my knowledge, appropriately as a federal required thing. So we need it to be in county code. The state will say, you're in violation, you're knowingly accepting trash. But the state's not going to send an attorney general down here to stand and watch trash come into our facility. It's up to us to do it.
Exactly.
So
Why don't you do it?
I will. If the council has that appetite, I will stand there the rest of today. And
Why does the council,
well, the council,
executive
the
branch
count.
runs the landfill?
I
Well,
appreciate
thank
you
you.
saying that.
Yes.
So then
Thank
we can
you.
start doing it tomorrow. But unfortunately, I believe that would probably run into some hiccups. And we,
I'm sure it would.
yeah,
It's tough.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Taylor. Kyle, what was your question?
Last question for you. If you guys are able to divert trash from out of the county, whether it is the phased-in approach or a code, legislation, whatever it might be, Adam, do you have any idea whether it's percentage of tonnage, how much room it's going to save the landfill over the next year, next couple of years?
So if you look at tonnages, which we look at daily, we look at them monthly, we look at them quarterly, we look at them every 6 months, and of course we make a very, very large report to the state every year. You can start to look at trends at each piece. Now, I've said this before as well, and I think we talked about this the other day. If you got a booming economy and a real big housing market, a lot of demo construction material, you're going to see spikes here and there. I think one of the things you're seeing is that this concept of diversion of any waste from outside of the county, you're going to see a precipitous drop, especially in a couple of there's a few haulers, and I mean, when I say few, one or two, that, are taking advantage of this more than the rest. If you see their tonnage drop by 35 to 50% of what's coming into our scales, and then we can do that calc as far as the cubic yardage and airspace coefficient, then you really will see good numbers come out of it. Right now, I don't have enough time. I can time series data of how much material we've taken. Got plenty of that. But I don't have time series data of, here's a diversion tactic, here's a code that explicitly prohibits it. Now do we see a tonnage rate, or excuse me, a tonnage trend? We need to do it, then we'll know. I can't give you a number sitting up here today of how many months that's going to buy me, for example.
And I want everybody to know, too, this is temporary. This is temporary until we get Cell 7 open. So we're talking potentially a year. So this is something that, when we're implementing these, first of all, we want it in our code, no matter what, to state that we're not taking out of county trash. That's always going to be it. However, this diversion plan is literally only for a year until we get Cell 7 open. And what we are trying to do is make sure that we don't run out of space before Cell 7 is open. So again, when you see things out on the news or when you see things out on Facebook that say the executive is doing this horrific plan and trying to hurt the citizens of Wicomico County, we are doing the exact opposite. And for anybody to report that, it's just sad. I mean, you're totally destroying your own credibility by putting that out there like that. We are trying to protect 104,000 people in this county, because we don't want to have to close the landfill, because then everybody is affected. So I understand that, every decision we make is going to come with some scrutiny. It's going to come, with some criticism. But this is something that both branches of government agree on, that we have to do something different. It has to be put into code. That's where the council comes in. We need to be able to make sure that we are not giving a path forward for anyone to put outside trash in our landfill. And the thing is that even when Cell 7 is open or we go across the street, that still has there's still going to be a lifespan of that actual landfill. So we still need to protect it. We have to protect it and protect the citizens of this county. They pay the taxes for it. Therefore, this landfill is for them. It is not for anybody else. So, are there any other questions? I could take probably one more. Go ahead, Mr. Goldberg. Last question.
The manifests that are pictured behind you, do those represent the manifests from one hauler or from multiple haulers?
These photographs just happen to be from two trucks. They came in together. They were driving as a team, and they both admitted they were from the same place. Now, the vehicle inspection reports, Now, if they're carrying a manifest, Mr. Goldberg, that's one thing. And based on our vehicle inspection report criteria, if they have a manifest, we are supposed to get a copy of it. So when we send them back down to the scales, our operator's saying, I need a vehicle inspection report on, 47 News's hauling company, and then they will print that out. We'll get down to the bottom and give them the receipt. We get the copy of the manifest, so on and so forth. With this, these are not manifests. These are literally the material out of the pile that has nothing but Ocean City. And
These are all from a single hauling, commercial hauling company, correct?
these in particular, but I've got, yes, sir, for these photographs, because they were just what was most recent on Friday, but I've got others where I've got other companies that is not just this one who are refusing our employees to even ask the question, where is it coming from? Thinking that we're violating their customers' privacy. Well, I can tell you, I can tell everybody what their customers' names are from the material that's from their home. Not that we need to share that information anywhere, but I've got companies that are also taking advantage of this situation we're in, that are not allowing us to even ask the question and are blowing us off, frankly, which we don't appreciate either. But at the end of the day, I can still look at their trash because as soon as it hits the ground, it's our property, and I can tell you it's coming from outside of our county. And it's happening on a regular basis, and it's got to stop.
All right,
Yes,
well,
sir.
thank you all, and I really hope that this press conference sort of enlightened you a little bit on where exactly we are with this landfill situation. This is not forever. This is just a year right now. So again, we are trying everything to make sure that we're diverting as much as we can from our landfill, at least until Cell 7 is open. So please recycle. Please do the things that you can do just as a homeowner. And if you have any other questions for any of us, please reach out. We're both, accessible. So thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it.